Jean Harlow came onto the scene as a blonde with this blazing white glory, halo of hair, and which was unlike anything anyone had ever seen.
The name Platinum Blonde being applied to Jean Harlow came about kind of an accident. That when her hair turned an odd color when standard dyes, bleaches were used on it. And then they enhanced that with Lux flakes and ammonia and all kinds of horrible things. But it made her look like no one else. So of course, when Columbia borrowed her for the Frank Capra film, they said, let's call it Platinum Blonde, make her the central feature of it.
One film critic at the time noticed how in her movies you'd see girls in all the audiences with their hair dyed platinum blonde, just like Jean Harlow. She became their idol. In theory, it should have been men who loved her because she was so sexually alluring. And you would think women would look at that and say, well, that's the competition. I don't like that. That makes me feel less than. When in fact, women liked her just as much. And her appeal really crossed over.
I think for the time of the Depression that there were so many people looking for a diversion from their situation in life, being unemployed or with the economy, and here comes this beautiful blonde sex symbol as it was. I think she got a lot more attention than other previous sex symbols.
Sex symbols go all the way back to Betty Blythe as the Queen of Sheba, Theda Bara wearing nothing in 1917 when she played Cleopatra. I swear, she's wearing nothing. She's wearing this little pasty over her breasts, over her nipple, and a little snake, and that's all. Now, if that isn't a sex symbol, I don't know what is.
Jean Harlow really was, a sexy star and a sexy person. Not in a deliberately provocative way. She was more kind of innocently provocative. Jean Harlow didn't do it intentionally. That's just how she was. She just walked that way and acted that way. It was very at ease with her body.
At this point, Jean Harlow's career takes another turn. Paul Byrne, the #3 producer at MGM, decides to take the young actress under his wing.
He was an advisor, he was a confidant, he took her places. But he did it with a lot of actresses. He did it with Joan Crawford, he did it with Norma Shearer. He was known as the father confessor of Hollywood, who squired around all these screen beauties, but never touched them. And it was the best thing she felt that had ever happened to her, because somebody who was one of the most respected men in Hollywood had shined a light on her and said, you matter, you're different, and he brought her over to MGM. MGM bought her contract from Howard Hughes.
MGM offers her a role for their picture, Bombshell.
MGM thought, okay, let's really capitalize on her, give her a story about a movie star. But they cleverly chose the life of Clara Bow and her crazy life as a star and having no privacy and having men after her for her money and her fame.
Essentially, it's Jean Harlow. She has parasitic parents. Her father in the movie is just using her just like Jean Harlow's stepfather was, her mother. And people who worked on Bombshell told me that they would go to the set and there would be Jean Harlow's mother and stepfather, the mother in furs and the stepfather in spats with a cane. and just watching the movie all day long, doing nothing. They didn't work, they just took her money.
I dubbed you the Hollywood Bombshell, and that's the way they like you. Men, scrapes, dazzling clothes, a gorgeous pinwheel personality, not patting babies on the back to bring up bubbles.
But turbulent waters lie ahead for the new MGM star. She built her career around audacious films, but in Hollywood, things are about to change. Jean Harlow is close to shooting Saratoga with her longtime friend Clark Gable. But the Jean Harlow that once sparkled didn't seem to glow anymore, replaced by a shadow of what once was.
She had a portrait session with George Hurrell, and he could see something was not right. He said that the shape of her body was different. She seemed like she had some kind of bloating, and that she tired easily, didn't have much stamina, and just seemed kind of detached and a little bit sad. So that was in, I think, mid-April. Then she started, right after that, or like a week later, she started working on Saratoga. And it was a pretty demanding role, but she just had a harder and harder time getting to the studio on time and staying the whole day, and she just was deteriorating.
During the scene shootings, Jean actually collapsed in his arms, and this not only happened with Clark Gable, but with Walter Pidgeon as well. And they said, baby's not well. And they would take her to her dressing room to rest.
And she finally felt so bad that she said, I have to go home, which she had never done before. She was a total professional, and leaving a set in the middle of production, she felt terrible about it, but her face was sweaty, and she went home to her mother's. And for the next week, there were reports in the newspapers, she's sick, she's getting better, she's sicker, no, she's improving.
A lot of people believed that she wasn't taken to the hospital right away because of Mama Jean's association with Christian Science religion, which promoted more of a spiritual healing. But I think this was sort of more of a rumor, because Mama Jean had actually hired nurses, and there was a doctor's visit to the house.
The problem was they misdiagnosed her. They didn't see that this was kidney failure. They thought it was something else. And the body, the kidneys are failing. They can't get the toxins out or the fluid out. So she's, you know, she starts to have brain fever.
And on June 3rd, she was admitted to the Good Samaritan Hospital in Los Angeles. And when she checked in, it was quite common knowledge that among the staff, they said she wasn't going to make it. They said that she was pretty far gone.
William Powell, who hasn't made an appearance until this point, finally visits her at the hospital.
When Jean Harlow left the set that last week in 1937 in May, she went to William Powell's set before she left MGM to tell him, I'm going home now, I don't feel well. And he said he would visit her, but he dated other women that week, and he thought she had the flu and it would be fine, and he didn't realize how sick she was, because when he went to the hospital, he saw this dying woman, and he realized what was happening.
A few hours later, on June 7th, 1937, Jean Harlow dies. She was only 26 years old.
When the funeral was held at Forest Lawn on June 9th, in the morning there were 200 invited guests, and the services were held at the wee Kirk of the Heather at Forest Lawn, and many stars appeared there, and the fans were kept out at the main gate of Forest Lawn was closed. On the casket there was a card from William Powell that said, "Good night, my dearest darling."
People told me that at Jean Harlow's funeral, William Powell had a physical breakdown. He was crying so hard, his body was shaking, and he collapsed as his mother is escorting him, and you can see it in the photographs. Jean Harlow's mother selected a $30,000 crypt, a mausoleum, for 3 people: her daughter, herself, and presumably William Powell. Beautiful space still today. And then she announced to the press that William Powell was paying for it.